Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and welcome to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies both new and old with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right, and to avoid any lazy negativity, we're making this a drinking game. Any negative criticism about a film is absolutely allowed, but you will be called out for it, and you will have to take a drink every time.
So pour yourself a glass, join us, and give it up for, where are we in the bracket this week? What are we doing, Jeff?
We are in our Corona franchise face-off, and we are in our second episode, which is our 2 seed against our 15 seed. God damn it. Just every single time. But before we introduce the 2 trilogies or franchises that we'll be discussing this week, I'm going to kick it over to John to give a shout-out to our beer sponsor.
All right, as usual, we're going to thank Mr. Carlos Barroso, our beer sponsor. Once again, we do not have his beers in our hands, which I'm very sad about, but we are missing him. We are sending him and his family love. He is still over there in New York. Give him a follow on Instagram. The handle is C Barroso Bar 2019. That's CBAROZZO 2019. And as usual, the music you hear on this podcast is by the artist Dasein. That's Dasein. If you want to follow him on SoundCloud.
Oh, you're Australian too. I had no idea we had 2 Aussies.
Yeah, go ahead and give him a follow.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah. We're living in the age of coronavirus right now, as many of you know, and those of you who don't, please turn on the television. Dave, I noticed that you started watching Tiger King.
I did. We got 1 episode in, and it was deemed in my apartment we can do 1 episode a day because we just can't take that much crazy.
Wait, so where are you right now? Because I was going to ask you about something in it.
No, we've literally watched episode 1.
Oh my gosh. I was going to ask you because there's a part where a film person loses footage because they didn't have it backed up. And my first thought was, Dave, this is literally Dave's nightmare. Is somebody like losing their footage and they didn't have a backup?
I don't know, I'd be more worried about losing a hand, frankly, if I was filming what they're filming.
Somebody's watching it at my place too. And every now and then I'll just like look over and catch a glance and why don't these people wear shirts or pants in their interviews?
Guys, it is worth every second of it. Those questions are the bare minimum of what's going to be going through your heads. Like, it is so worth every single bit of it. I can't recommend it highly enough. What a cast of characters.
Do you think they planned the release something that ridiculous and absurd?
You know what? It's so funny. This question keeps coming around a lot, and I don't know, obviously. I don't know, but if I were Netflix and I looked at this, I would sit there and I would say, we need to make sure this goes out at the right time. Like, Making a Murderer came out at the perfect time.
Even the filmmaker himself has said, I never expected it to turn into this.
Yeah, and he was filming
he had a completely different documentary in mind when he started.
Yeah, and there was another filmmaker who I was talking about before who gets interviewed, who lost some of that footage, who was filming it as a reality show. So this is like 2 projects and 5-6 years in the making. This thing, it is like you sit there and I kind of wonder every now and then, are we out of ideas? Did we run out of documentaries to make? Did we run out of subjects? And I'm sitting there because I saw he was on John Oliver. You'll get there in the series. There's a John Oliver clip that they show, and I'm like, How is there not a documentary about every single character out there like this? Like, I don't understand how there's more to find.
Well, after this, there might be, because they're talking about actually making biopics for some of them.
Oh my gosh, of course. But the docuseries are the best because that's like Stranger Than Fiction type thing. Anyway, that's what we've been doing.
There's actually an online feud going on between Bryce Dallas Howard and Jessica Chastain over who gets to play her. Play one of the characters.
What a weird fucking time we live in. Also, that reminds me, there's a parental advisory in this episode. So if you're a child that I teach voice, you're my favorite student, I promise. But be careful. We might say some really dirty language. We might use some nasty big words.
Some not language. Look out.
Now that they're gone, how much does that student suck?
Fluffy.
I'm also in my childhood home, so I'm hoping my dad has gotten a lot of shit in the past couple episodes for these advisories. We're like, if you're dead, don't listen to us. I have a feeling he's going to come in. He can't hear you because I'm on listening on my headphones, but he might make an entrance. We'll see. All right, I think it's time to move on.
Why did your dad leave the house during the quarantine? Well, Jeff was recording a podcast, and I couldn't take the fucking language anymore.
He couldn't take it. He pulled a full Tiger King and just walked right into the fucking tiger den and said, screw it. Here's my arm. I'm gonna put some cologne on my shoes. Just take me. Okay.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So, Corona franchise face-off. We decided to do this. We didn't realize that podcast listening was going to be down like crazy during this time period, but movie watching, Netflix watching, and Zoom use, but more specifically, movie watching is way, way up. So we figured people would be tuning in to watch some franchises, some trilogies, so we started doing our franchise face-off. It started out as trilogies, and then we opened it up to franchises. Last week, our number one seed, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, specifically the extended editions, the director's cuts, if you will. Our number one seed did advance. It did advance, even though it had half a no vote, I believe, by Dave. It advanced over the Cornetto trilogy, which is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz,
Rest in peace, Cornetto
World's
trilogy.
End. Cornetto trilogy is great. And what's funny is we have another comedy going up against our 2 seed, and I've been getting some shit about our seeding because, for instance,
haven't you?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
That was amazing.
we don't. Well, we should do a whole separate episode about this.
I was like, yes, we have internet trolls. We've made it.
Yeah, we have internet trolls. Well, first of all, the formatting came out a little cranky on my original version of the thing, but I redid it, and some people are so fucking mad that the Dark Knight trilogy is not on our list, and I was like, you know what?
Shit.
Yeah, the Dark Knight trilogy is not in our list, and
Dude, let's just call it what it is. We totally forgot about that.
We forgot.
We didn't even list it when we.
Yeah, we forgot. Now, here's what I would say. I still think it wouldn't win, but it would. Yeah, we forgot about the Dark Knight trilogy, and I got some shit about it.
I do. I feel bad about that. Yeah.
We got a lot of stands about some other stuff too, but I like that we gave comedies a lot of
this is what I keep saying. Like I'm hearing a lot about Indiana Jones. We're getting a lot of flack about that. This is what I keep saying. We talked, listeners, and we decided that if there were some ones that were going to land in the middle that we knew weren't probably going to win, then we decided to throw some fun comedies in there because the conversations are going to be hilarious trying to compare them against like actual trilogies, and 2, we're trying to shine some light on some things that maybe you wouldn't. How many people even knew what the Cornetto trilogy was before last week? Probably not everybody who knew what Lord of the Rings was.
We don't have to justify ourselves to these people. Fuck the Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's actually been Dave's, because the whole time, because I was like, I rewatched Last Crusade in the summer. It was on Netflix, and I was like, cool. And I rewatched Last Crusade, and I didn't even get through it. And so I'm talking to Dave. I'm like, I know people say this is good, and Dave's like, fuck it, this is our trilogy series. And we were like,
it's
okay.
not good. And Temple of Doom. That movie sucks, dude.
Also,
it's not good.
They just didn't age well. The humor is very. It really feels like our grandpas are laughing, and like the younger generation. They just didn't. Yes, for sure. What's the first one called? Jesus Christ. The
Raiders is
Raiders is
good.
Raiders
is good. Sure. Raiders is great. Steven Spielberg's a genius. George Lucas, shout out. Harrison Ford. But ultimately, we went with somehow Austin Powers tops it in our ranking. And Austin Powers is our 15 seed, and it's going up against the first series that we'll talk about tonight, which is the Godfather Trilogy. That is our 2 seed, the Godfather Trilogy.
That's right. We're actually doing this.
Yeah. So anyway, all you stands for Indiana Jones or what else we got? Alien, RoboCop. All you stands for fucking The Land Before Time. Get the fuck out of here, all right? This is our trilogy. This is our series. And you know what? Land Before Time. Put Land Before Time up against the Godfather Trilogy, and let's see what wins. Now put Austin Powers up against the Godfather Trilogy, and now we're talking, all right? So let's start.
Now we gotta fight.
Let's start with the Godfather Trilogy, and I am very self-aware that the last thing the internet needs is 3 dudes to talk about how good the Godfather Trilogy is. But as far as rewatchability, my dad and I'm at my family home in New Jersey right now to escape quarantine. I didn't realize when I left New York City that might be the last time I ever see it. I left before they shut the schools down. Like I left a long time ago just to get away for a week, and now I'm like, oh my god, I wish I brought another pair of contacts. I've been wearing the same 3 pair of underwear and the same 4 shirts. Anyway, my dad and the rest of my family was really excited.
You were in underwear?
They were really excited to rewatch The Godfather. So this is a good time to put 9.5 hours or whatever into The Godfather.
It's 539 minutes.
Yeah.
539 minutes.
I wish HBO still had it where they did it in order. So they put the De Niro scenes first and then one and then whatever. Anyway, I've been yapping. Who would like to start talking about The Godfather? I don't even know where to begin. Go ahead.
Dave led us off at the end of the previous episode saying that he had not seen these before. So I've been really anxious to hear about what your experience was like watching these for the first time. First of all, I'm always curious when I meet people like you. How did you so skillfully avoid seeing it for this long? How did you not watch it?
It's easy. When it popped up, I just clicked on something else. It was like I was honestly constantly hearing about how these were the movies, and the sequel is better than the first one, and the third one sucks. So this was all the mythology built up around this, and I watched them, and I was like, okay, The Godfather is a good movie. It's not exactly a well-made movie, but it's a good movie.
Buzzer,
The Godfather,
buzzer.
Where's
that buzzer?
Buzzer!
You just said The Godfather's not a well-made movie. Buzz
Me?
yourself, you asshole.
You motherfucker. Keep going, bitch.
No, don't stop. This is why we drink, so that Dave goes on rants.
And then I got to part 2, and there were some amazing highlights. Like, De Niro is a fantastic performance, like, in the second one, and most of the time I was like, okay, we're an hour and a half in, and I'm kind of done.
Wait a second. You just said it wasn't that well made, but the second movie is where it started to pick up. The first movie, it was too dark. It was, what is it?
The first movie was great. There were some fantastic, phenomenal performances.
Yeah.
There were just things like the entire wedding scene at the beginning was overexposed, and I don't think that was on purpose because everything else in the film was exposed perfectly. I think it was an error somewhere, but they used it in the movie. I'm on 8% beer, you guys.
Yeah, I know. And is that a pint can? Is that a full pint can?
Yeah,
oh my God.
It was. And there were some great character introductions during that scene. The scene itself was amazing. The story development, everything throughout the course of it. The story was fantastic. I just didn't like some of the filmmaking techniques. I feel like the first scene could have been accomplished. It took 35 minutes to get through the wedding where you were introduced to everyone, and it could have been done in 20.
Wow. I guess I'm not surprised.
And I mean, I really dug Luca, the character of Luca, the bodyguard.
Yeah.
I found his performance really, really genuine, and then I found out that it was actually 100% genuine because he was so nervous about acting opposite him that he flubbed his lines and they left it in.
That's good.
Which, I mean, that kind of genuine thing really got me through. I loved all the Sicily stuff. I loved the infamous scene in the restaurant where there's no subtitles. And I understand the reason for that, and I thought that was great. But yeah, I don't know. The beginning of it lost me a little, and then it came good, and I was hooked. And then I got to the second one, and they started bouncing back and forwards between the two storylines, and I was just like, I'm loving all the Robert De Niro stuff, but we could just lose that whole other thread.
So why don't we pass it on to John?
Okay.
So this is this is the thing that people often come back to when they talk about The Godfather, even hardcore fans, is that I think oftentimes Marlon Brando eclipsed the production with the first one so much that people think when you say The Godfather, you think you're talking about Marlon Brando. But this whole saga is about Michael Corleone. It's about Al Pacino. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, because I used to feel that way when I was like a kid and I was getting really into these movies. Number two, it's almost impossible not to be more compelled by the flashback stuff because you invested so much into the mythos of Brando's Godfather in the first one. And it's almost like Michael is the surrogate for us. Like we're kind of getting to see the world from his point of view, which is interesting. But you just so desperately want to know how Brando came to power and came to rise. However, the more I watch it, the more I appreciate Michael's story. And it obviously, I mean, it is tough when you're going back and forth. And that is a really, really long movie, the second one. I mean, that is 3 hours and 22 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
But I've loved these movies forever. I don't like number 3. I am one of those people who is in that camp
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just same. Everyone, so many people are in the same boat too. I mean, Coppola and Puzo wrote the screenplay together, just like they did with the other ones. It's not at all based on any of the book though. So the book is basically 1 and 2.
Actually, only half of 2.
Yeah, part of 2.
All the flashback scenes of the book and the entire other storyline that I mentioned earlier that didn't fit is the stuff they added.
Yeah, and it's a big reason why I feel like it should have stopped. there is because the tragedy that the present day story follows in number two. I mean, we can say what we want about what we think is more or less compelling and stuff, but that shot of Michael, that wide shot at the end, when you hear the voiceover of Fredo saying the Hail Mary, and then you hear the gunshot, and that just stays wide, and he just bows his head inside the boathouse, and it just like dissolves away. I mean, the story ends there for me. Like, I feel like you needed, as compelling as the Vito, Marlon Brando's character flashback stuff are, I feel like it would not have made sense to just go back and do a whole movie about that. It did need to be juxtaposed with the constant tragedy and fall of Michael. Like, so I know what you mean. I appreciate it, but I also have trouble talking about these movies without talking about the performances. I mean, I feel like
the performances are phenomenal. Everyone.
Yeah, it's like for so many people, it was their, maybe not their introduction, but maybe the first time for our generation that we really got to see Marlon Brando in such a legendary performance, and then the influence that clearly had on everyone around him. I mean, everybody in the first one is so good. Robert Duvall is fucking perfect. Al Pacino in that, Al Pacino version 1 that he was in for like the 70s and early 80s before he started getting gruff and screaming about everything. I mean, there's just such a calm stillness in him, and I think that it's probably safe to say that Brando had a lot of influence by just being who he was and acting the way he did. He created a tone on set and set a bar for performance levels. And I don't know, for a movie this commercially successful, you scarcely see work like that. I think The Irishman touched on a lot of like really steady and grounded work like that, but a lot of commercial cinema you see nowadays, even the really critically acclaimed stuff that goes to the Oscars, you scarcely see ensembles that are all on the same page with how seriously they're taking the work, and they're grounded in a very similar style, along with a director who trusts them enough to let them go to town. John Savage, who plays Fredo, is just...
Not John Savage. Absolutely John Cazale.
John Cazale. I did. That's from Friends. When they get the John Savage, John Deer Hunter, John Cazale. Anyway, John Cazale, unbelievable in these movies. Diane Keaton, not much of a role, like in terms of the script. Like, that is something that I think I would have enjoyed having even more of her. But their exchange when she says she's going to take. Parts, like, when she says she's going to take her kids. The
studio made them go back and add more stuff for the family.
I mean, they should,
because they saw a first cut of the film. Yeah,
it's kind of hard to defend the whole idea of doing this for family if there's not family being torn to pieces because of it. That scene at the end of number 2 when she says she's going to take his kids, and he just that close up where you just see him build. And obviously they did it on purpose. There's that wonderful close up in the restaurant scene in number 1 where he assassinates the chief of police and the Turk. I can say Turk because I'm Turkish, and. In number 2, they clearly wanted to do something similar, and that close up of Michael and Al Pacino. People like to talk shit about Al Pacino because of the 2.0 and 3.0 when he started screaming and everything, but that man knows how to do his job. And The Godfather was one of his first big movies, and I don't think they give him enough credit. I think everyone still mostly talks about Marlon Brando, and it's Pacino's story, dude. What do you think, Jeff?
Marlon Brando is perfect.
Wait, can I just jump in one more thing? Just shout out to the fact that the very first shot of the very first Godfather movie had a visual effects shot in it, and it was a computer-controlled zoom lens.
Wait, I forget.
They were using a computer-controlled zoom lens in the 70s. I did not know this. I looked it up, and yeah, they used a zoom lens to do that extremely slow, like, pull out that they do at the beginning of the movie,
where it starts in on I forget the funeral director guy, and then it backs up and you see Brando petting the cat like that.
Yeah, and then the opposite of that happens when Michael is sitting there and starts giving directions to people. They push in at the same speed.
Cool.
But, yeah, it's a computer controlled zoom lens. It was a computer controlled zoom lens. Yeah.
Wow.
It makes sense because the desk.
So hats off to the focus puller.
Wow.
I love. It's all about the performances and even the writing for the first 2. So I kind of don't want to talk about 3 until, if this gets passed on to the next
Nobody
round.
Does.
We can talk about it. Honestly, like 3 was I'm gonna be straight up. I had never seen 3 because so many people told me not to. They were like, "This movie's just keep the first 2 in your trilogy." And now that we're doing this, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to watch the third one finally." But I wanted to, but I think at some point I was like, "Cool, I want to see the third one," which I've heard is a disappointment, and it's 3 hours long. Great, okay, well I did it this time, and it is beyond disappointing. It is. Wait, I'm gonna make a comparison. Hold on.
Yeah. Give it, yeah.
So you know how I remember J.J. Abrams said this about The Force Awakens. He said, he's like, honestly, the bones of The Force Awakens is just, we took as much from episode 4, A New Hope, as possible. We wanted to get that nostalgia back. We wanted us to be here. So I kept the bones. And honestly, that was like the biggest problem with The Force Awakens. Even though The Force Awakens ultimately was a success in many different ways, it really was just that movie again, and then it didn't really propel a trilogy forward. It just was like, it just didn't do anything other than remind everybody what it was like to feel that kid feeling seeing Star Wars for the most part. The Godfather Part 3, half of the movie, if not more, is callbacks to the style. It opens with a long set piece. In this case, it's Michael's... he's getting honored by the church, and then there's a dinner. It's like a 30-minute set piece, similar to the 30-minute church scene at the beginning of the first one. And then it follows similar structures, and they try to do this half-assed, like, hackneyed story. And if he says... Wow. If he says If he says Fredo one more time in this movie, like, I honestly was about to throw my computer out the window. Like, how, like, he's basically just telling us, it's like, oh, I'm Fredo, oh, Fredo. Well, I did this to Fredo. What did you do to Fredo? What happened to Fredo? Did you do Fredo? And I'm like, leave it the fuck alone. Can you tell a new story? Get on here. This is not, you know how...
Do I have to wait till Jeff finishes the sentence to buzz him, or can we multiply buzz him?
Half of episode 3 felt like the Bachelor reveal when you're like, so what did it feel when she dumped you? And he's like, honestly, it really hurt me. And I was like, can we talk about something that's important? Like, half of the movie was basically like, so Michael, what did it feel like when Fredo? And he's like, oh, Fredo. It's just leave Fredo alone. Move on and tell a new story. And you know what? A lot of people hate on Sofia Coppola for some reason in this movie. I hear that a lot. I didn't think she did anything wrong. I thought she was totally fine. I thought it was the script was a half-assed and hackneyed. They were trying to...
She's pretty terrible in this movie, dude. Hold on.
Hold on. She's just fine. Like, what were you? This story doesn't need anybody to be good in that role. The script isn't written well for her. Like, nothing about what's going on. They try to make her fall in love to the cousin. Also, it's missing all the family. He's the only one. It's missing. In the first one, you have Michael. You have Fredo, sort of. You have Robert Duvall is trying to play some power. He's trying to have a power play in the transition. You have James Caan. You have the brother-in-law. You have a lot of stuff going on. In the other one, it's basically like... Also, what is going on with Talia Shire's character? She's basically just like a support beam for Vinny in like the whole time. Like, all she's sitting there and goes like, Michael, you should listen to him. Michael, you should listen to him. Yeah, he's right. And I'm like, Talia Shire, what are you even doing there? You don't even add anything to this story. The whole script is terrible.
It's one
Which
of
is
those
too
where
bad because it's
kind of
made by masters. Obviously, everybody involved in this know how to make good movies, so I just can't explain it. I can't explain it.
It's
It was
one of
such
those
a
that
disappointment.
I don't even know if it's worth trying to dissect it because there's so many things that are wrong with it.
Okay.
It's a shame, but 1 and 2. But 1 and, yeah, I'll drink to that.
Okay,
I mean, it's
sorry.
really bad.
But
that's how. Hold on, that's how good.
I feel like
that's
I'm a
how
stand
good
for 1 and 2, and I'm a
1
stand
and
for
2
that. That's some of the best 1-2 punch in cinema history.
Yeah.
The original into sequel. I don't know if it gets any better than that. The first movie is widely considered one of the best movies of all time, despite some spotty shots and an overexposure. The second movie, the way they move Michael's story along, and then De Niro as young Brando, especially in those Sicily scenes. There's so many iconic De Niro scenes in this movie. Almost the entire movie, he's speaking Italian, and it's totally fine. It is just.
He went away and learned that for like 6 weeks.
Well, and it was cool for me rewatching them. Yeah, it's cool for me rewatching them because, especially after watching the first one, when you see Brando nails so much the subtlety of how much he didn't want Michael to be in the family business because he had this posture about him where he didn't think as opposed to like John Gotti and Tony Soprano, like the mobsters of contemporary, those like he knew it was a dirty business, right? And so he was trying to do the best he can. He was trying to put a crown on shit, if you will, and he wanted Michael to stay pure and innocent as his golden child. What? That was just a reference. Anyway,
okay. I feel like what we should do is actually we'll regroup and we'll talk about the 2 really good Godfather movies.
Yeah. So anyway,
honestly, I mean, but that is all you think about when you think of this trilogy. You don't think of the trilogy. You think of 1 and 2, and that's how they're that good. 1 and 2 are so good that it completely. Gary,
my dad's in. There he is. Wait,
He's in.
Wait, he wants to do the beer cracking thing. Here you go.
yeah, give it to me. Oh yeah,
yeah.
We got that. Wait, let's give a quick review. Dad, what was your review of rewatching Godfather 1?
Oh, it was awesome.
What was your favorite part of it?
Oh, it's tough to say. I love the. You're just waiting the whole time for him to make an offer he can't refuse, and when Brando comes out with that line, it's just perfect.
And then when Michael says it again later, you're like, it's almost like he's been groomed now for that part.
Absolutely, that was great to see.
And wait, just really quick, what was it like when the movie came out? Was it the huge thing? Like, was everybody talking about it?
Oh yeah, it was huge. I was on the too young to watch it side because of the violence in it and all. I was just a young lad back then. But it was definitely the talk of everybody. Actually, the book was... Yeah,
I was going to ask, the book is supposed to be huge.
In the summertime, and everybody was reading the book. All the adults.
Yeah, John's asking about how huge it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. And then when the movie came, and then to put that cast in the movie... It was just huge.
And those are after The Godfather, it was like all of them. You wanted to follow all of them moving forward, right?
Yeah. Then you followed them all.
Yeah,
and
good point.
Jeff and I were talking that in my remembrance was the beginning of this trilogy thing and a sequel. Movies never had sequels back in the day, but then that started the sequels and the building, and then you got everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was actually the second movie in the world to do a sequel, a numbered sequel.
Dave just said he heard that was the second movie in the world to ever do a sequel, and that was probably the best version of it, the first one to do it that successfully.
Okay. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
Damn, that is awesome.
Right.
Thanks, Dad. We got the audio in there, and now he has to drink this beer.
What was his favorite line that contained an F-bomb?
Oh, great. Dave wants to know your favorite line in the movie that contained an F-bomb. I can't even think of any right now.
He wants you to...
Not really, no. There's very little cursing. Yeah.
Sonny curses a lot when he's yelling at the brother-in-law.
Yeah, that's all I can think of. I don't think anyone else...
Yeah,
he doesn't have to provide one.
I'm not as good with lines as you are, but, I did go along with the lines. No problem.
Good.
All right.
Good save. That was a great save.
Cheers, guys. Have a good time.
Thanks.
Cheers, man. Thank you, Gary. That is a really good point about how this movie, and sometimes films do this, but like this movie is the one that launched so many of those careers, those people, those men, and Diane Keaton. And Talia Shire had a few good ones, but Diane Keaton definitely exploded. A lot of the men in that movie exploded, and we look at this movie as where they came from. That's not true for all of them. It wasn't all the same scenario for Al. Obviously, definitely not for Marlon Brando, but this was a really quintessential experience for me as a child when my dad sat me down and we watched this together when I was like 9 years old.
When you were 6, yeah.
Yeah, this was like a big deal to him. He's an immigrant from Turkey, and like he was getting into the culture in the 70s. He was trying to watch movies and stuff, and I think this had a big impact.
What's your dad do for a living?
Well, now he's retired, but he was a dentist.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, that's a good point about how it creates these.
He showed you that in Reservoir Dogs.
Jesus Christ Almighty! It's so good though. I love these series. Yeah. So the point, real fast, before your dad walked in, which that was awesome. I'm glad he came in.
Yeah.
Real fast.
That was our first official guest star.
That's right.
These movies are so good. Number 1 and number 2 are so good that it doesn't matter that it's a part of a trilogy and it's in our franchise face-off. I would still happily fight for this all the way to the finish, because the first 2 movies are some of the best movies ever made in contemporary American cinema. Especially, we haven't even really talked about it, but Coppola is kind of the godfather of that group of directors that were coming out in that time in New Hollywood. And this was just the beginning of a white heat time in his career. The 70s, he just made back-to-back. Godfather, Conversation, Godfather 2, Apocalypse Now. Holy shit. I mean, how the fuck do you just put out, within like 8 years, he pumped out 4 of the best movies ever made, dude.
Yeah, and then he said, I just want to make wine. And then they made him do Godfather 3.
I just want to make wine.
Did anybody cinematographer. Are you familiar with the cinematographer of this?
Hit us.
Gordon Willis.
Yes,
Gordon Willis.
Yes.
Yes, he's from Astoria, Queens.
Heyo.
Whoa.
Heyo.
Right?
I live there.
Yes, I used to. Jeff did once. Yeah, he became known as the Prince of Darkness on this film.
I mean, that you
when-
never see
when they-
both
no,
their
when-
eyes. Always half of their face is in a shadow.
when they first sent the dailies in, they got sent back by the studio because they thought it was a mistake.
Of which
They
I,
thought they
which
no, just the dailies of the first day's shooting. They thought it was a mistake because it was so dark and there were so many shadows. They were like, "This is a mistake. They fucked up the dailies." And he was like, "No, that's exactly right, actually."
Yeah. Okay. So what's his name? I don't want to mess it up. We should give a little shout out to what was happening right now. The
Gordon
producer who produced this, who produced The Godfather. He was the head of Paramount at the time. You guys keep talking. I'm going to find it real fast. I'm gonna find this guy's name.
Well, we're almost, you know what? I hope we get another go at The Godfather coming up soon, because I would love to talk about the subtlety of the script and the callbacks and the grooming of Michael, and how in 2, Michael's moving forward as basically like we're moving back in time to see De Niro as Vito, to see how we establish, like how you can really trace the line of the family lineage and how Michael's moving it forward as you go like all the way to the back. And I love the dichotomy of that in the second movie. I don't think there's much else to say other than these are really 2 of the greatest movies ever made. I love all of the backstory. I love how Coppola's almost fired. I love how Pacino's almost fired. They moved the shooting of the restaurant scene up because they thought he was going to be fired.
Okay,
And they
so
thought
I
they
got
would
it
be
right
able to hold on. I thought they weren't going to be able to reshoot that. Martin Sheen read for Pacino's part because the studio didn't want him. They didn't want Brando.
Oh God, could you imagine that with Martin Sheen?
I know, it's weird, and he had one of those like weird hippie mustaches. He kind of looked like Dennis Hopper in Easy Rider. Like it was weird. Like he didn't look like Michael at all. De Niro read for Sonny, and James Caan got cast instead. Like all of these, there's so many good There's so many good stories about this.
It was one of those things. It was one of those times. We mentioned this with Lord of the Rings. It's something magical was happening, and it was not. Unlike Lord of the Rings, where we talked about how New Line just said, go for it, and Peter really did have complete control. Coppola and the whole team were going up against, his name is Robert Evans, so he had recently taken over Paramount.
Yes.
And their backs were against the wall financially, and they were taking a big risk on this. The book was hugely popular, so when they optioned it, they knew they were they wanted to take a chance and do something really special. Coppola had not done anything super successful yet. He had written Patton, and he had directed a couple other things that did fairly well, but nothing that were handing off the most popular book of the time to this guy. But they wanted an Italian. They wanted somebody that would know how to tell the story correctly. And every step of the filmmaking, especially in the pre-production and the first several weeks of shooting, they were told no. So this is just another example of when artists had the vision. He cast the people he wanted to cast. He had everyone around him he wanted to work with. They started going to town, and they were in production, and the producers they're getting dailies back, and Robert Evans and everyone is saying, we got to shut this down immediately. We're going to lose so much money. We're going to fucking tank. We're going to have to file for bankruptcy. And he fought them the entire time, Coppola. And he ends up making one of the greatest movies ever made. And I always wonder whenever that story happens, because it happens too often to be comfortable. It almost never happens the other way, where you hear about these producers that knew how to make this great picture, right? I always wonder if producers who are coming up and cutting their teeth now and trying to rise to the top of these big production studios, when they hear a story like that, I wonder if they think part of my skill set is to start being able to speak and understand artists better. Or if they really do just think that that's just the nature of the beast, and sometimes, it's just scary to take a risk.
I mean, I hope they do, because it's still happening to this day. There's still cases of producers locking directors out of editing rooms, and in the case of the Fantastic Four movie, which was a disaster, they re-edited the entire Act 3. Yeah. On the director.
David Lynch's cut of Dune is like an hour and 20 minutes longer than his theatrical cut, and it's the only one that makes sense. It's fucking long as shit, but that happens all the time. Yeah. Not that James Cameron is
Caligula, which I feel benefited from that, but
fuck you, drink that shit. It does happen all the time. I don't know. It just makes me wonder. And Coppola, again, just to respect him, it's really, in a way, it's almost beautiful that he got used to doing that, because you can hear even in interviews now when he talks about it, his entire career has been like that. He had to start making one because nobody wanted to give him money to make his movies. But I mean, every movie, the ones we just talked about, especially Godfather 1, The Conversation, number 2, and Apocalypse Now, no one wanted to help him back any of those stuff. He had to fight against the elements and the nature of man and the nature of planet Earth to get those things made. And he made 4 of the best movies that came out of the 70s. So as filmmakers, as audiences and fans, what does it say about somebody? What if he had just given up at some point and said, "You're right, this is too much of a risk," and we just didn't have The Godfather? Can you imagine? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Last thing, when before Coppola was making The Godfather, he was making another movie for a studio, and a young filmmaker won an award for a short film they made, so they got to shadow a professional director to see what it's like to be a professional director. It was George Lucas. George Lucas shadowed Francis Ford Coppola in like 1969 or 1970 on the set for a day.
He didn't just shadow; he was the production stills photographer.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also another thing
wasn't just that either. He also edited together the montage, the murder montage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! Well, yeah, Jesus. Anyway, and then Brando, who is kind of the studios were kind of wary of him at the time. He fought for Coppola. He stood up for him and he said, "You make the movie you're going to make. I'm here for you. We're a team. We're a family." Yeah. So to your actors up there, stick up for your directors. I'm not saying they're going to fight for you back, but it should be a team, and that's the way it should be.
I think Coppola paid him back with Apocalypse Now, and when he let like 2 weeks go by of them just not shooting because Brando just didn't want to shoot, and they just talked in a fucking cabin in the woods for a long time.
And when Brando gained 50 pounds for
But
the
that's
role.
another story.
Cool.
Godfather's awesome. Go watch it. We're moving on. When we
Skip
come
3.
back, we are going to be talking about an equally compelling and dramatic trilogy, Austin Powers. We'll be right back.
And we're back!
We're back.
Wow, we
right.
just talked for a while about our number 2 seed, The Godfather. Some of the best movie making ever done, with the exception of the third one. And... damn it.
Right off the bat, take a fucking drink. In fact, let me open my beer. Because, yeah, you're right.
Wait for Jeff to talk.
So, we are now going to talk about our 15 seed. And I'm really happy we gave comedies a lot of love. It is fun in the time of Corona. By the way, these are all on Netflix, too. So I feel like that got an added boost because in the time of Corona, you can go back and watch these movies.
I mean, I feel like when we picked these movies, we were like thinking that people are going to be locked inside. They're going to be going a bit stir crazy.
Right.
So maybe they don't want to watch rampaging aliens.
Yeah, I mean, sure. So, like, let's talk about the Austin Powers trilogy.
Austin Powers, baby.
It was seminal for me. I mean, all of these came out
Yeah,
while I was
baby!
alive.
Yeah!
I saw at least 2 of them in theaters. This is one of those movies for me where all of the quotes were coming back, the way they
You
said
are
it.
hairy.
He would stay alive.
Like
He would
animal.
say a lot. Even the weirdest fucking things kept coming back to me. Like, oh, I fell over. Oh, I fell over again. Like, all, like the tiniest. Like, there are a few of those movies that you hear. If somebody near me says, "Oh, I fell over," I'm gonna be like, Austin
Mm-hmm.
Powers. Like, even if I'm nowhere to,
Sex?
Anyway.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I can guess, baby.
Evacuation
We play chess.
process.
I get.
Come.
Yeah. No.
Come.
Do you know what in Russia? You know what we do to? Do you know what we do to keep warm? I can guess, baby. Yeah, we play chess. I guessed wrong. Like all of these things. Anyway,
we're only going to quote this. That's all we're going to do in this section. We're just going to quote Austin Powers.
And by the way, so far we have ruined every quote. So let's go ahead and continue to make it inaudible for
All right,
people.
so
Okay.
let's lean into
Who
it.
wants to start? I'm gonna pass it on. Okay, John and I are quoting it too much, so let's start with Dave. What do you say?
It wasn't enough for Americans to whitewash the films. They had to American wash a British guy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, that's how it
Actually,
looks. In 20 years later, it is.
He's
like that.
Canadian, motherfucker. Mike Myers is
Yeah.
Canadian,
Yeah,
so go
Dick
fuck
is
you.
Canadian.
Yeah,
Aren't Canadians-
What's
Aren't
the
Canadians
difference?
closer to Australians than Americans? I feel like there's some.
No, not really.
No, you're also nice. Anyway, what'd you think? Well, tell me, you've seen these
What
before,
fucking
right?
Australians have you seen? Oh yeah, I've seen these a million times.
Fun
Yes.
time? Did you have fun? Did you guys have fun rewatching?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the opening numbers. Every single time they do an opening number, it just got more and more ridiculous every time they went.
Hello, Rabbi.
Like till it culminates in the third one, where not only is there an opening number, there is a 20-minute scene with some of the best cameos you've ever seen in your life in it.
That they needed that. I was saying that I liked them all, rewatching them all talk, but that third movie opening like that, it was basically like, we're fucking back. That's right. We're doing a third one of these motherfuckers. They spared no expense. They used up bigger
Nobody
budgets.
asked for it, but we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. That would have never been able to get past a Bloomfield film where they only give them a couple $1 million for the whole movie. That opening sequence is $4 million.
I'm pretty sure half of that was done on favors. I mean, it's Mike Myers. He's worked with everyone. He knows everyone.
Yeah,
I'm
let's
pretty
talk
sure
about
a
this
lot
for
of
a
it was done on
second.
favors.
So this was, I think, my friends and I talk about this all the time. The 90s were dominated by Saturday Night Live performers getting movies. And
Adam Sandler.
This was not Adam
Chris
Sandler's
Farley.
huge. Chris Farley, Mike Myers, Dana
twice.
Carvey, obviously. So this was not Mike Myers' first time. Will Ferrell eventually. This was not Mike Myers' first time out. He had Wayne's World first, which are awesome. But this was a special time where, for some reason, everyone was really excited to give them money and to go see them do this. This entire thing was his baby. I mean, sometimes I think when we think of this, it's not just like he was sitting in a sketch room. Like, the stakes are higher than on SNL. Like,
Yeah,
he didn't write. This isn't a
not
character.
really. He wrote this in a week.
Yeah, but then he made he made the movie. Like, they do that on SNL too, and then they do it for like a 3-minute sketch. Like, it's kind of hilarious to think that. I don't know. This doesn't happen anymore, does it? With our comedies. When was the last time an SNL star was featured in a movie, like a current SNL star? I can't think of anyone except for
Kate McKinnon was in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Kate McKinnon was all hail
And
Kate McKinnon.
Leslie Jones.
And Kristen Wiig would have the tiniest of roles in movies. Like, she was in Knocked Up. Like, she would do that, and then she got big after she left. But she was getting like little bit parts in movies. You're right.
It does still happen sometimes.
She's got a big one coming.
Yeah. So Austin Powers, let me put it this way. Let me share a little anecdote with you guys. I don't know if either of you know this, but I don't know. Listeners, Dave and Jeff are friends with me, so they know me pretty well. I don't know if they know this fact about me. The summer between 5th and 6th grade, 1997, I was going into middle school the following year, and I was kind of nervous. And this movie came out called Austin Powers in like May or June. I'm not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. I watched that movie on videotape every single night of that summer. Every single night I watched that movie. It became a part of my being. It was.
I think we've all got an anecdote like that. Like mine was The Goonies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Jeff, what'd you have?
Mine was Happy Gilmore. But I watched these movies
That
a lot,
explains a lot.
and straight up, The Spy Who Shagged Me came out like right at the worst age for me, because Heather Graham did things to me I didn't know were possible, and that I learned a lot about myself watching Heather Graham and The Spy Who Shagged Me, for sure. I know Elizabeth Hurley. They're all the girls. They're kind of based on Bond girls, right? This is sort of a spoof on the Bond thing. Actually, Daniel Craig even said like Mike Myers took Bond and we need to take him back or something. But yeah, like, so the Bond girls. I will say it is interesting watching it in hindsight. It doesn't change anything for me, but 20th century feminism or 21st century feminism comes into play. There's a couple sensitive jokes about little people or dwarves.
I was talking about this with somebody I was watching one of these with recently for this pod this week, and I'm going to get scrutinized for this, but it didn't. I thought it was still okay because Mike Myers plays Austin in such a non-threatening way.
Yo, 100%. I agree.
It never came off like he was completely in charge, or else it always felt like he was. It was so silly that he thought he was so sexy, and he never was condescending about it.
Everyone around him sells the joke because everyone around him is the straight man or woman, and they're reacting horrified to the things he's coming out with.
Right.
And because the rest of the cast is saying no, this is not okay. Basically, it's what Australian youth sense of humor has done for years. We take an issue that's front and center and accentuate it to ridiculous proportions and put it right in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the women were strong too, so it was ridiculous. Like when he's saying all those things to Elizabeth Hurley, who by the way is a 10 out of 10. I mean, that's so ridiculous. Like she's perfect,
Her
but like she's also
was great. Yeah,
but she was also really good. Yeah, she's really good. I would say maybe Heather Graham, maybe better in Boogie Nights, but
Yeah, no, for sure, you're right. I'll drink. Yep.
But I'm telling you that reveal when they get on the island, they take the wetsuit off and she's in the bikini. That is my Ursula Andress moment.
And then it cuts to Austin. But the reason it's okay is because it cuts to Austin in the same bikini. And I can't. Yeah. Right, so I went through a couple years ago, probably like 3 or 4 years ago. I was going through nostalgic times, and I was rewatching a lot of movies from my childhood. And I went through like all the great '90s comedies, all Adam Sandler's and everything. And when I hit the Austin Powers, when I finished them, I was looking for something else like Austin Powers that's in that world of parody with really high production value. And I mean, high enough. They knew it was kitschy. They knew what they were doing. And I couldn't find anything else like that. So like this is, it kind of does stand alone. It's kind of hard to find a period. I guess it's period. We'll call it period, right? Like a period trilogy franchise with really good production value. The music is fucking incredible. The whole thing is satirical. I couldn't find anything else like that, and I don't know. You guys, let me know if you find anything else like that.
It was really funny. The first time I went and saw it, I went with a group of friends, and we walked out, and it was like, yeah, Mike Myers was great, but who played Dr. Evil? I had to look it up.
Yeah,
the first time I saw this,
it
was so good.
He's the white Eddie Murphy. Right?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely.
He just straight up stole that from Eddie, but I'm so glad he did.
Could you imagine those two in a movie together? There'd be like two actors, and that's it.
Oh my god.
These movies are really, really, really funny. Okay, why don't we do this? Because now they're all on Netflix, and people listening might be able to go back and watch them.
Yes,
well, let's talk about
our favorites.
Would you recommend doing them in order, or do you want to talk? Well, yeah, let's talk about our favorites. I think for me, the first one was actually my favorite, which was unexpected. Because before rewatching them, I probably would have said Spy Who Shagged Me. And I think that was actually my least favorite this time. I'm not saying it's not good or anything, but this time rewatching them, I watched the first one and then I watched Spy Who Shagged Me and I was like, I think I like the first one better. And then Goldmember just goes zany in a whole like even crazier, more bright, colorful direction. Yeah. So I would probably go one, then Goldmember, then Spy Who Shagged Me after rewatching them. Even though the quotability isn't there necessarily, but that's what I would say as far as a full film.
Straight up 1, 2, 3.
Really?
Oh, cool. Straight up 1, 2, 3 for me. Yeah. The one simply because no one saw it coming.
Yeah.
and they literally.
Can you imagine pitching that?
Yeah. It's like, and they built it from scratch. The whole world. Yeah.
And they built it well, and it translated into 2 great, and 2 they upped the stakes a little, and I mean. If I was going to say anything bad about it, it's by the time you get to 3, like 2 was enough. It's the same as The Godfather. 2 was enough. By the time you get to 3, it starts becoming a little like having a 4-year-old in the house who's realized that you laugh when they fart.
Drink.
Yeah. I
I
agree with you for sure. Number 1 is definitely my favorite. I think it's the tightest. I think every
crazy. I would not have guessed that rewatching it, but it's true. Yeah.
Every line is funny. Like almost every line is quotable. Every scene is iconic. And yeah, you said like they built it from the ground up. It's kind of unlike Ace Ventura, maybe. They had a good budget for the first one. So it didn't feel like you were seeing them on training wheels in the first one, and then they finally got a lot of money for the second and third. Like it felt like they feel like they're the same exact, production. It's the same director. It's the same production house. Mike is still heavily involved with all of them. So the first one just feels tighter. It's more original. There's something to his performance too that was so surprising. It's so fresh, so funny. He hadn't revealed that character yet. So it was also just fun to see him. Nobody knew who Austin Powers was when it came out. It's kind of hard to imagine the world without him now.
I love a running gag as much as the next person, and respect to anyone who can do it for 3 movies in a row.
Johnson.
Like there are running gags all the way through this.
The dick. The sight gags. The best part of number 2, the end with the rocket. The rocket at the end. I mean, that whole thing was just fucking. I mean, that's incredible.
Ridiculous, but hilarious. One of my favorites was I was watching this scene today. There's a special cameo by Will Ferrell, and he ends up going over a cliff.
Go to the hell palace.
He's broken both his legs, but you never see him once. He's shouting from the bottom of the cliff.
It's beginning
the
to
entire
smell
thing
like
is
almonds.
literally, it's literally just Mike Myers on camera and him shouting stuff from the bottom of the cliff. And I'm not sure if Mike Myers even knew what he was going to be shouting. But like the whole scene, you don't see him once. The entire thing is a radio play.
Yeah, and
it's
also,
hilarious.
and Will Ferrell got to do that twice because he did it in the first movie too, where he's burned alive, and he goes,
Yeah.
"I am very badly burned," so he gets to die the same way in 2 different movies.
Yeah, it's the running gag.
What is
and
his
the
first
first
time?
match.
I am very much still alive, but I'm very badly burned. And then the second movie, he's like, "My leg is broken. My other leg. Hold on, let me see. Ah! Yes, it is also broken."
Isn't that one of
It's so
his?
funny.
Wasn't that one of his first movies?
Yeah. The first one was, and then I think Superstar
Yeah.
came out somewhere around between 1 and 2, like somewhere in there. But yeah, and Night at the Roxbury. Yeah, those were
That was
really
definitely
movies.
his first big one. Night of Roxbury came out in '98. Yes, this was his first big movie.
Yeah. I'm going to quote all the movies. I'm going to remember the gags forever. All the shadow gags that they do in 2 and 3, where people keep reaching into Mike Myers, like rectum to pull things out. Heather Graham. And again, Heather Graham is just like, I don't know why, for like that seminal moment.
So
of
this is a
watching her.
fun comedy for the whole family. Just
I will say I'm gonna give like a little bit of negativity, but the second movie there were just a lot of plot holes, and the time travel thing just didn't work. No, I know, but it's true.
Yeah.
If you rewatch the movie, you just have to rewatch it for the quotes and the lines, because they even have to look at the camera early on. Basil and Austin look at the camera.
That's
and
my
they
favorite
go,
part.
"This doesn't really make sense." And they're like, it's like, just don't think much about it.
don't
And that
think
goes
about
for
it.
you at home. And they look straight into the camera. And then later, like the time machine, that last sequence at the end, I remember seeing it in theaters as a kid and being like, oh, cool, I can just go back to 5 minutes before and then save her. But ultimately, it's just choppy. And it held it back a little bit for me as an adult for some reason. I know. And then Goldmember's a little cheesy.
That was for being an adult.
Goldmember's a little cheesy, but Beyonce has some cool lines. Actually, she actually does a really nice job, I think, for the most part. You know, it's a tough character to do. Mike Myers is making her a caricature, and I think she pulls it off really well. Michael Caine's part of the daddy issues is really fun. They kind of overplay that flashback. They go, "Remember that time your dad wasn't there?" And then there's like a 10-minute sequence of them at school. Also, apparently, Dr. Evil went to school with Austin Powers, even though in the first 2 movies they didn't mention that at all. So you think that's a little weird. It's weird watching them back. It's weird watching them back to back to back.
Although I think it works
But-
because they don't care.
I know, and I know I shouldn't care. For some reason, the humor just wasn't a 10 like it was when I was a kid.
I know. Well,
Whereas
I
the first
felt
one,
the
it was.
same.
for the
I
first
felt
one, it
the
was
same,
though. That's
yeah.
what I was saying. So that is the only thing. We're not to this section yet, but
Yeah.
that is something that I've rewatched them maybe twice now since my childhood, and
Yeah.
it has always been not disappointing, but I have been very aware that the first one is good. And it is still good, and I still really love watching it. And I watch 2 and 3 for the nostalgia, not because they're as good as the first
Yeah.
one. I'll take a drink on that one.
Um,
Shout out to Rob Lowe for the
Shout
on
out to Rob
Robert
Lowe.
Wagner. Really funny. He does a pretty good job of that. I like that.
I watched a thing
Yeah.
about him recently, and apparently when he was a guest host on SNL, because he was actually pretty big in the 80s and 90s as like a child star, sort of, or like a young adult star, before West Wing. And so when Mike Myers was on SNL, for some reason they had like a casual friendship, I guess. And Mike Myers asked him to be number 2, and I guess was just comfortable with him enough that globe bit when he's like, "Oh, you're gonna cry? You're gonna cry?" and he throws the globe in his face twice. That actually wasn't planned. That wasn't scripted. Like they basically were like, "I think you can do more. Like it would be fun to see number 2 get fucked around a little bit." And so they just did that. That was the first take. For one take, they did it. He threw the globe in his face twice, and it was not in the script. Mike Myers just did that to Rob Lowe because they had that good working relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they'd done Wayne's World by that point as well.
And let's
Oh
give
yes,
them
that's right. He was in Wayne's World. Yeah.
Let's give them some credit too for like the big picture thing. Everyone who was involved with this, it took a lot of balls to satirize James Bond. I mean, that is a huge franchise, right? That is like bedrock of like, you know, that kind of spy storytelling that everyone loves so much. So I feel like, again, I couldn't find anything else like this because it does kind of stand alone. There aren't many people who try to
like they went,
seriously
"Hey,
satirize it.
James Bond is a little bit misogynistic. Let's put that on a stick
Yeah, let's make fucking
and
fun
put
of
it
this ridiculous
right in your
thing.
face."
Yeah.
And the hair, like how ridiculous it is that they love like the hair covering him over.
I can imagine him sitting there going, "What if James Bond was flicked forward to the 90s?" Okay, there we go. We got a script.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, you know what? Like Mr. Bean would be like a British comedy version of that genre, I guess. This is.
Have you seen Johnny English?
No, I actually haven't seen
Johnny English. And
Yeah,
the Naked
Johnny
Guns.
English
The Naked
is-
Guns. are
Yeah,
pretty good.
Johnny-
but those.
Johnny
My point
English-
is. My point is these are like
mid-ground
Western
between the
comedy.
two.
Like a Western comedy tends to be a little flashier, and therefore it's harder to pull off. Whereas, not that British humor is easy, but it's subtler. It's usually slower burns, longer burns. We talked about this with the Cornetto trilogy. These flashy moments that Mike Myers says, these sound bites, these moments that you remember, all of the times that he goes like, oh, whenever he sees like a hot girl do something hot, and he's just like, yeah, like all of those moments are so good. Like,
But
he
he has a gag and he sticks with it. That's a variation on the Wayne's World swing.
Yeah.
And
And then of course he went on to make The Love Guru, which was Austin Powers on a rolly platform.
Wow. He literally lost. Isn't that the movie that he literally lost? Like
Everything, and he should have.
Totally produced that by himself. I feel like I heard he lost like tons of money on that.
He might
Oh,
have,
he
but
produced
those
it by
Shrek
himself.
movies
That
made him so
explains
much
because I
money.
got the impression watching that there was no one sitting around him going, "No, Mike, that's not a good idea."
Honestly, I kind of miss him though. I mean, again, I know we grew up like right in that sweet spot. Well, two of us grew up right in that sweet spot where he was an enormous. Fuck you. Yeah, he was an enormous influence on my childhood. I would say Austin Powers and Ace Ventura just dominated most of my, and Adam Sandler, not as much Adam Sandler. Those two dominated my. Had a friend over to sleep over that night. What do you want to watch tonight? We're going to watch either Ace Ventura or fucking Austin Powers, and we're going to laugh our ass off. And I'm still watching it. Oh, 20
agree.
years later, we're still having fun.
Yeah, I graduated to those. I mean, when I had friends over, it was Monty Python and the Holy Grail,
God,
Sure.
I love those. Yeah.
I first saw that at
Let's go
Sleepover.
back,
which is
dude.
also on Netflix.
Yeah.
I should add.
Life of Brian.
Yeah.
Dude, don't sit
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. That this and Happy Gilmore for me, but actually Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, the pair.
Yeah.
And I guess a little bit of Tommy Boy Black Sheep. That's when I was like, SNL is the bar. That is the comedy bar. Like SNL, whoever's on SNL, I'm gonna give them a chance because
That whole
look what they produced.
group.
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore, I have a real soft spot for that because my grandfather didn't really like cursing in movies. He was kind of a bit against it, and we were sitting there watching Happy Gilmore, and we got to the scene where they're sitting in the office, and he's just losing his shit
Piece
on the TV.
of monkey.
And it's all bleeped. My grandfather, and I've never seen this before, had tears streaming down his face, and he fell out of his chair. It was the most amazing thing ever, and
That's
thanks
your
Adam
hole.
Sandler
Are you
for
too
that.
good for your hole? You mother baby.
Shooters! I'll see you
shooter.
in the parking lot.
Yeah. Oh my God! When
Price
that
is
guy
right,
takes
bitch.
when he hey, you forgot your 9-iron when he bends the 9-iron. Just when he gets the nail gun in his head. Wait, we're getting off topic.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
Oh my God! The whole,
Oh
anyway.
my God, dude.
These movies are all fantastic. They're all great. For me, watching them in order was great, and is also a little bit of a mistake because it just showed how much better the first movie was, in my opinion, as far as a movie plot and all that kind of stuff. But the gags are so good, and all of them. That third movie, that peeing thing, where Mike Myers is peeing because he kicked out the plug of the fountain. And then so he's peeing, and then he realizes that he's running out of steam, so he drinks a Dasani. There's a plate of asparagus there, so he eats a plate of asparagus, and the guards are looking because they see the smell. And then you see the reverse side from the security angle where it looks like he's peeing in somebody's mouth. It's so good. It is so funny.
They are fun enough. They are fun enough to rewatch for sure. These are not masterpiece.
Yeah.
This is not masterpiece cinema.
Rewatch in a group.
Yeah, have fun. Like, come on. There's no reason not to watch these movies.
Let me rephrase. Rewatch at a group that's already in your house. Do not invite people over now.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is
Cool.
current
So
story.
that was great.
If you're listening to this in 6 months, then by all means invite everyone over and watch this movie.
Right. That was quick, but they're so fun, and I'm so glad they're on our list. Sorry, Dark Knight, but like this is fun. I'm glad we rewatched these.
Yes.
For sure. So that's Austin Powers. When we come back, we are going to deliberate and
We're gonna decide.
which franchise is moving on in the franchise face-off. We'll be right back. And we're back, baby. Sorry, folks, I just have to share this little bit with you. Dave and I were chit-chatting between the break, and he told me a little anecdote that I did not know about the Godfathers. Dave, will you please share it with our listening audience?
Apparently, there was a great deal of mooning on set.
Mooning is in old-fashioned
mooning.
pulling your pants down and showing people your bare
Yes.
butt.
Started by James Caan and Robert Duvall. Now, this is on IMDb trivia, so you can look
This
this
is
up
when like
yourself if you want.
streaking was like a big deal in the 70s, so I could see this being like a thing, I guess.
Totally. They mooned Francis Ford Coppola, Marlon Brando, Salvatore Casito. James Caan's commented Time magazine, "My best moon was on 2nd Avenue." Robert Duvall and I were in one car and Brando was in another, so we drove up beside him. I pulled in my pants and stuck my ass out the window. Brando fell down in the car with laughter.
God, how does this become a thing? That was the thing on the set of The Godfather. One of the
They
greatest
claimed
movies
that
ever made.
it got so bad to the point where every time you opened a door, you expected to see someone's ass. Even Al Pacino got in on the act.
I mean, these guys grew up with Marlon Brando in the 50s, his movies, and now they're like, I got an idea. Let's fuck with Marlon Brando. Let's moon him. Like, can you imagine mooning Daniel Day-Lewis?
Wait. Fuck with Marlon Brando? The ultimate moon came when Brando and Duvall mooned 400 cast and crew members during the shooting of the wedding scene. He fucked back. Okay.
Of course he's the best. Of course he
I
was
miss
like,
I miss the olden days. We'll never be able to do that again without getting a lawsuit. Damn it.
God, that is
I don't
so
know.
funny, dude. That is hilarious. All right, we are back. We are finally deliberating.
I feel like moons are okay as long as you paint a happy face on it.
Maybe Dave's
Moons are
listening
always
up to The
okay.
Godfather because I thought he was going to go Austin Powers on this one.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We are deliberating between the Godfather trilogy and Austin Powers.
All right.
Yeah, we're actually doing that. You heard correctly. We are actually putting those things against each other. I was talking with my roommate earlier this week, and he asked me what the franchise face-off was going to be this week. And I said, it's The Godfather versus Austin Powers. And he just bursted out laughing because he could just sense the shame in the tone.
Is this Al? Al wants to get in.
This out.
Al wants to get in on Star Trek Week. I would love for Al to get it on Star Trek Week. That could be something.
Star Trek.
I
Baby.
mean, yeah.
So yeah, here we are. What do you guys think? We're gonna move forward with one of these trilogies is moving forward this week. It can only be Mike Myers and Jay Roach's Austin Powers trilogy, or Francis Ford Coppola and the dudes, Godfathers. What are we feeling?
Shout out to Demi Moore for being a producer on all 3 Austin Powers movies.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
How does that even happen? Who told her about them? How did she even know about that?
Mike Myers, obviously, he's like, "Hey, Demi, you want to throw down on this?" She's like, "Yes, I do."
They're like real friends.
I mean, the really funny thing is, well, I worked it out during the break, and The Godfather was 539 minutes, and Austin Powers was 283 minutes, which means we watched 822 minutes of movies.
God.
You're
for
welcome,
this.
Yeah.
America and world.
We
You're
did that.
welcome. Wait,
We did that for you, even though nobody asked.
India and New Zealand are our furthest listeners. You're welcome.
I feel like the guy
Yes,
at
for
that,
you.
in that I feel like the guy in the Twilight Zone where like the world ends and he finally has all the books and it's like there's time now.
It is time. This is time. I'm going to go around. I'm going to call it right now. Jeff, hit me with your votes. We got to do it. We got to go there.
Okay. I
What's moving
was
forward?
very happy to rewatch all of these, but I have decided that Austin Powers just doesn't hang up for me anymore. It just doesn't do it. I love it as the comedy. It's very soft place in my heart.
That's right.
I will be
You can
quoting
get buzzed
it.
during this section.
I will be quoting it till the end of time. And even though Godfather 3 is the worst out of the 6 movies that we watched,
Is Godfather... Wait, let's decide that. Is Godfather 3 worse than the sequel and the third movie of Austin Powers? Is it worse?
yeah, like
hell yeah.
never in the third movie of Austin Powers was I thinking, wait a second, where did they go wrong? I never thought that.
Oh my God, that is so good. That is so accurate. The third
true.
Godfather is definitely the worst of these 6 movies.
It just is. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So The Godfather's moving on, and I don't know how long it can.
Oh.
It's the 2 seed. I don't know if it can hang on to the 2 seed, but for right now, it lives another day and it advances to the quarterfinal. For me, past. But I'm not the only vote. Let's go with Dave next.
Let's go to John. Let's
okay,
go to
fine,
John.
John. Oh yeah, because Dave's always our deciding factor.
All right. I could not live with myself if I did not also vote for Godfather. Austin Powers is fucking hilarious, and I enjoy rewatching them. I do it every few years or so. The nostalgia is real. The first one is really good. The other two are still a lot of fun. But number 1 and number 2 of the Godfather trilogies are still some of the best movies in the American canon. And they are still some of Francis Ford Coppola's best movies. And any of those actors in those movies, they are still some of their best movies. It's impossible not to acknowledge the brilliance and the masterful filmmaking. It's just too good. So as much as I love Austin Powers, I'm sorry. Yeah, baby. No, baby. You're fucking out of it. I'm sorry. Godfather is moving on for me. Godfather it is.
All right. Well, Dave, it seems like it's already decided, but let's see. Because
Well,
you can talk people in. We caucus here.
I have to say, like, Austin Powers it came along at the right time. It was a very timely thing for comedy, and it redefined comedy. It made you watch the same movie 3 times without realizing you watched the same movie 3 times. You didn't even care.
Yeah, baby.
There are a couple of really good points that I didn't focus on before. Seth Green.
Oh yeah. Bring him out. I want to hear your idea.
Seth Green.
Seth Green. That was in the middle of the Seth Green thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was.
Can't
he was
hardly
absolutely-
wait. Austin
he was
Powers.
Austin Powers is the perfect straight man. It's like no matter what, he's the foil. Like he played it to a T, and he was.
You just wanted to see what
serious.
color his hair was going to be in that particular movie.
We're gonna call this Preparation H. He's like, why don't you call it Preparation Ass Cream Ass? Like his line deliveries are just so strange, and also he's so good too because he plays at the trope of like, we're gonna put him in a room with sharks with lasers, and he's like, why don't we just shoot him right now? I got a gun in my room. Let's just do it. Let's shoot him go. And Dr. Evil's just like, you just don't get it. So in a weird way, even though he's crazy, he is playing the straight character in Dr. Evil's
right,
which is crazy. It's
well,
so
that's the thing. Every time Mike Myers is on screen, everyone else is the straight man.
That's exactly.
With a couple of exceptions, but like most of the time, everyone else is the straight man, and that's what makes it work for me.
Yeah,
and it makes it really, really good. And I have a score system where like when I'm watching these, I basically every time I see something I like, I put a little X, and then I count up the X's at the end. And Austin Powers, the entire trilogy came through with a 14 for me. It got 14 X's. There were 14 things I liked really, really well in that movie. In those movies.
No idea you did this. Why would you do that?
That's 14 in 263 minutes.
Why did you do this?
And how many X's did the Godfather get?
We're putting them against it. Like, so we're putting each other against. So to be fair, I'd give them a score every time I saw something I liked. The Godfather for me came in with a 19.
19.
Really?
19. Yeah. I mean, I took 5 of Austin Powers for Love Guru.
Fuck you, Mike Myers. Why did you make the Love Guru? Damn it.
Yeah, just somebody say no. Oh, come on. But yeah, The Godfather, I mean, 1 and 2 is the ultimate trilogy.
Yeah.
It's okay. Fine.
No, you're totally right though. Like they are the trilogy. Like that is it.
I mean, they're long enough to be a trilogy.
They're the extended
That's not
versions
negative.
of the
They're
Godfather.
like, yeah. Peter Jackson wishes he was Coppola.
Honestly, dude.
Yeah.
No, you're totally
But
right.
I mean, like, there's innovative cinematography. There's like, yeah. So, like, De Niro really gives a performance that makes you wish he never went into comedy. And I mean, as far as I go, if it's between Godfather and Austin Powers, I'd have to say leave the gun, take the cannoli.
Take the fucking cannoli, bitch. You fucking take it. Godfather is moving on, motherfuckers, as it should. We all love everybody hail Austin Powers.
Which was
we
an
all
improvised line, by the way.
Love it. We all love Austin Powers. We are, once again, just like the Cornetto trilogy, we are not discouraging you from watching those. Have some fucking fun. Get some laughs
if you need
in
a
your gullet.
silly laugh, they're perfect.
Yeah, but The Godfather, buckle up. You do not need to watch number 3. Buckle up and watch number 1 and number 2 again or for the first time, and give yourself one of the most incredible cinematic experiences that exists in American cinema. It's still,
And I can
holds
tell you,
up.
number 1 is compelling as fuck to watch. Yeah. Like I couldn't look away. Brando is magical.
Yeah.
The structure is
like,
perfect. The editing is perfect.
Like there's a little. Do you know about the rivalry with this where Pacino actually caused a ruckus over the fact that he was nominated for supporting actor?
Yeah, he was so bad, even though he should have won.
He's on screen for more than Marlon Brando. Brando got nominated for
Right.
Best Actor, and deserved it.
Well, and then this
in
year,
my opinion.
he should have won Best Supporting Actor, Pacino, and he lost to somebody who should have been a lead. So it comes back to bite you in the ass there, Pacino.
It's fucking crazy, dude.
Damn.
It's funny. You're talking about De Niro's performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just praising
Yeah.
The Godfather again. Now that we've decided Godfather is moving on.
Godfather is moving
Lee
on.
Strasberg plays Hyman Roth in the second one.
Oh
So
my
he's-
God. Yeah.
And he's wonderful. And
Oh.
if anyone who doesn't know,
He
Lee
was
Strasberg
so
is
sick too.
Yeah, he's a very, very famous acting teacher. He was in the group theater. He was a part of the very early teachings of, quote, the method. So he was an enormous influence
It's
on
not
a
Sean
lot of
Penn,
the
and, like, it's not brilliant
yeah,
people.
so many people. The
Hoffman.
Actors Studio. Has anyone ever heard of the Actors Studio?
Yeah.
He started that. He was one of the founders of that. So anyway, it was wonderful to have him on film in such a wonderful role, wonderful film, opposite wonderful actors. Like, it could not have been better. And there's this great quote. I saw it in an interview once, and somebody was asking him because he and De Niro were nominated that year for supporting actor. And apparently, after De Niro won, Strasberg was quoted saying, "Bobby earned it." You know, he knew. He knew. Hyman Roth is incredible, and he did a really wonderful job. And he does have a little. There's something going against him because nobody likes the present day story as much as the flashback. But what De Niro did in number 2 just elevated that second installment to something as good as the first one. And that's why these movies, that's why we're talking about them the way they are. That's why they will live forever, is because it's almost impossible to make two movies that are as good as each other. And they're both masterpieces. And The Godfather did it. Number 1 and number 2 are masterpieces, and I think they will be forever. I think they're timeless. I don't think the Italian mafia romanticism will ever be trampled on by the how society feels about them. I think these movies transcend that every time you watch them because they're too specific, they're too personal, the stories are too relative to all the characters that are going through them. There are no tropes. There are no cliches. Anything that you think are tropes or cliches come from these
And
movies.
I would say to that, The Godfather paved the way for The Sopranos. It paved the way for Goodfellas. It paved the way for The Irishman. It paved the way for Casino. And probably that style...
Paved the way for anyone who used shadows in their cinematography. Like,
Anybody who puts a shadow on their face, like John Say when he directs movies.
I do that. I like that.
and I would say, with the exception of maybe up there with Citizen Kane, as far as like noir style, like whodunit mystery movie with that added, just like a straightforward drama with a little bit of action sequence. I guess that's a lot of things to throw in there, but like it's kind of a whodunit because you're kind of deciding like who's in on it, who's in charge, who's doing the hits, who's the enemy, who's the villain. Like it's constantly changing throughout the movie, and that mystery element mixed with the action and the drama of it, it's like besides Citizen Kane, no movie can pull off that genre crossing as much as Godfather. It really created its own subgenre of all these other different genres. Anything else, Dave?
As a throwback, real fast, as a throwback to Lord of the Rings, once again, Francis Ford Coppola is a wonderful writer, and he wrote a lot of his own stuff. But once again, just like with Lord of the Rings, our number 1 seat, The Godfather is based on a really incredible book. So the source material is there, and you had a really good director who knew how to tell that story.
Dave, anything else before we bring this home?
well, no, the only thing I can take away from this is I'm looking at you now, Jeff, and I don't know what's going on with your webcam, but you look like the baby from 2001.
Yeah,
Do I
you
really?
disappeared
Oh,
from
cool.
me completely.
Yeah,
I don't see you at all.
glowing.
You're just
You're
a white
glowing,
orb
dude.
floating
Yeah.
in my screen now. I can't see you at all.
I've been using a lot of lotion. Well, I think that was great. Tune in next week when we talk about Star Wars and the Fast and the Furious. That's right. Star Wars, our 3 seed up against the Fast and the
Oh,
Furious
that's going to be
franchise.
a fight. That is going to be a
my
fight.
gosh.
It's all about
and we're also doing the
family.
original Star Wars trilogy. We decided to separate all the trilogies for the sake of Star Wars, really. But yeah, so the original Star Wars trilogy, I'm separating that franchise. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, wait, we're not doing all of them?
I thought we decided not to. Oh no, that wouldn't have been my
I
three.
mean, wait. Are we doing like we can't do the Fast and Furious franchise
you're
and then just
right.
only 3 Star Wars?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
we might
Okay,
have to do
shit,
them
that
all.
changes everything for me.
We're gonna have to do them all.
Listeners, I'm sorry, but we have a lot of movie watching.
All right, so the Star Wars episodes 1 through 9, right? Because we're not going to count the spin-offs. So
I mean, the Godfather had Godfather 3, and Star Wars can have the prequels.
Yeah,
All right.
1 through 3.
Thank you
Fuck
so much
sequels.
for tuning in, and we'll see you next week with all 9 Star Wars, the Star Wars saga against the Fast and the Furious. We have a lot of movie watching to do in the next couple of days. All right, bye, film fans.
Yeah, baby.